This next question is the same for both of you. As every poll's illustrated, and I'm sure you've ran into when you speak to constituents, public distrust of Albany, discussed too, has never been higher, and it's no small part because of the real and perceived conflicts of interest that they believe, and you guys have articulated here tonight, exist in the state capitol, as well as the lack of transparency. I'd like to know, if you were elected, are you prepared to say to the audience here that the only job you not only would hold but be compensated for would be a state legislator, and you would not have a second job? Mr. Ball.
Once again, that's exactly what I did when elected to the New York State Assembly. I had a job. Most of these guys, and men and women, they take their position, and then they use their public position for the private benefit. Albany has turned, literally turned, shifting around large sums of money into a professional support, either through law firms — I'm not an attorney, my opponent is — by hiding behind the attorney-client privilege, or through consulting firms, or through not-for-profits. And it's not only people like Joe Bruno, and mind you, I was the only Republican in the state 2 years before his indictment, and the first to stand up and ask that man to step down. And in the state Senate, I will fight tooth and nail for full accountability, because there's a lot of talk about campaign finance reform, which is extremely important. But it's not about the $100 here, the $2,000 here, which we can all look up online. It's about the $50, $100 million transfers to people like Sheldon Silver, to Joe Bruno, and to lesser-known members who really make both of those two look like Girl Scouts because they haven't seen the scrutiny. And those are the type of initiatives why my own party leadership has spent over $2 million to stop me. Because they know, and there's a collective, oh God, he won the primary up there, because they know if I'm seated in that state Senate seat, I will fight and be the most independent voice that state legislature has ever seen. I was under the thumb of Sheldon Silver in the Assembly, and we accomplished things like stopping the governor's driver's license plan, passing a statewide combat veterans tuition, my property tax cap bill, which is now being touted by these deathbed political conversions, was my bill. My taxpayer bill of rights to cap state spending is my bill. So absolutely, I can tell you that that's what I did as a state assemblyman, and moving forward, I'll fight to open up the dark cave that is Albany and the hidden transfers.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Kaplowitz, same question.
Thank you, sir.
Another example of diametric opposition between the two of us. My opponent is a career politician. He even studied political science in college. He's either been running for politics or served as politics. And he's been incubated. Sir, please, I didn't interrupt you when that's in school, sir. As a career politician. And when you go to Albany and are incubated in Albany, you are just that. He receives a $10,000 a year bonus and his base pay as well for leadership in the Assembly.
Chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, Mike.
Sir, I'm please talking.
You're dancing all around as Veterans Affairs.
Sir, please, I don't interrupt you.
Well, tell the truth.
As a career politician, that's the flip side of what I am. I'm a small business owner. I will absolutely not give up my outside business. I will be a better legislator because I have knowledge and experience in real life. This gentleman is part of the problem in Albany. They think that this passes for good policy and work product. This got us to the mess we are in today. If people are happy with career politicians, they can vote the incumbent. If they want someone that can sit on the insurance committee and rein in health insurance companies, as Senator Neil Breslin asked me to do if I get elected and join him, and he's chairman of that committee, I'm going to be able to have the knowledge to find out how we can rein in those companies. If, in fact, on finance, and I'm hoping to have a seat on that committee, I can go through the particular lines and find ways to close the gap. So the answer to the question is not, am I going to keep my outside experience? I'm going to be able to take the tough vote and make the tough decision knowing that my job and my leadership is not related to that vote. That
Kaplowitz,
freedom, sir, is what will make me a better state legislator.
But Mr. Kaplowitz, no one's debating that life experience is valuable, but are you saying you don't have sufficient life experience to sit in Albany without having a second job?
I'm saying absolutely that gives you the independence. That gives you the opportunity to make that tough vote, knowing that you are not beholden to leadership who's going to hold it over you. If you lose an election because of a tough issue, look at the housing vote that I voted on. I knew I could go back to my family, and I knew I could go back to my certified financial planning practice. My mom all day long says, Mike, you have a nice life. Why are you doing it? I'm doing it because it's public service. Yes, sir. That is the freedom. I'm not bought by the Senate Republicans who've sent this mailing out and every other mailing, New York State Republican Committee. But the second part of your question, sir, and this is what I do owe in return for that. What I do owe in return for that, sir, is disclosure. Because what I have to do is make sure that there are no conflicts and in 13 years as a county legislator, there have been none. And I have stood on the floor. I'm the only one, vote after vote after vote, when appropriate and necessary, that have disclosed if there are clients involved. I have signed reform pledges. I will disclose outside income, and I will live up to that, my part of the bargain.
But
finally,
to that point, you don't believe that being a state legislature requires full-time attention, that there is enough time to have a second job?
Sir, it's absolutely full-time effort. I've shown that as a county legislator. It's not an issue of hours. I can walk and chew gum at the same time, sir. I can be a better state legislator because I'm a real person with a real job. Yes, sir. Okay. I don't want him as my state senator because he doesn't have a lick of knowledge about any of the important financial areas. It's top-line platitudes and no detail. Okay. Check his campaign.
Thank you, Mr.
And that's
Kaplowitz.
proof positive, sir.
Now, I would...
Sorry, go ahead.
Can I follow up on that since he's been a lot of follow-ups in the past?
You answered the same question posed.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go back to business, the cost of doing business here. Mr. Ball, on your website you talk about working to reverse New York's openly hostile business climate. Part of the state's image as being hostile or unfriendly to business has to do with the lengthy review processes for new projects and developments. A prime example of that is the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA process as it's known. There have been attempts to expedite the process, but it appears that it cannot be done without changing some laws. Assemblyman, you voted in favor of allowing SEQRA citizen suits, which basically would allow people to sue in response to alleged violations of the environmental conservation law. When you voted for that, did you not perceive that as an anti-business vote and that it could potentially add more to the onerous process for businesses and developers?
Yeah, I can tell you that from my perspective, specifically on that vote, there have been many votes that I have made to review and to fully reform the SEQRA process, making it more friendly. In fact, I have introduced and will introduce as a state senator, as a majority sponsor hopefully, to have an environmental impact study done on every single piece of legislation that heads out of the New York State Senate. That said, and that aside, my opponent has accepted tens of thousands of dollars now from.
Well, I'm going to ask him the same question, sir, so I just want to stick with
climate. The single most important thing we can do right now is comprehensive school tax reform to give individuals on all sides of the political aisle more money in their pockets, and to repeal the MTA payroll tax, which is the final nail in the coffin. If this state Senate remains in Democratic hands and we have Democratic majorities in all branches of government, that MTA payroll tax will never be repealed. And this is another area, a very clear definition of where we both stand. My opponent believes that government is the answer. I know that in New York State, government is the problem.
Mr. Ball, I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. I'm going to have to cut you off. You can save that for your opening statements. I'd like to hear from Mr. Kaplowitz on modifying the SEQRA process while still protecting the environment. Of course, tell us what, if any, modifications you make.
Debating Mr. Ball is similar to trying to round up cats. It's impossible to stick to the question and the answer. The answer is that the SEQRA process is well-intentioned, and thank heavens we've had it all these years. There's no question that there, after all these years, some modifications that I would be open to. I think we need to balance, continue to balance environment versus jobs. I received the environmental groups, League Conservation Voter and Sierra Club, because in their statement they said, Mike Kaplowitz understands that good environmental policy is good economic policy. We can have it both ways. The concept, by the way, of extending environmental review to all measures. So we're going to put that on measures that are purely fiscal, that have no impact on the environment. That's going the wrong way. I do not understand why we would do that. Maybe it's because
let me just circle back around, though, to my initial question. What modifications, if any, would you make to the process?
The big issue, of course, is the issue of speed. The big issue, of course, is in a world where we're trying to, for example, the Tappan Zee Bridge. That has been so attenuated, and yet we are not even in the federal capital program for the $16 billion in 2012 dollars. That's a perfect example of we need to come up with and balance the environmental concerns, but get that project going. I want to make that happen as a New York State Senator. That would be my first case study in moving the environmental process.
We have time for one final question.